full of stats.
Engage Vernon.
I'm your new wingman.
We will win! Because we have...
Welcome to CommLink.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the CommLink Podcast, episode number 19, in fact. I'm Stubb, and as always, I'm joined by Silvius. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you on this fine Saturday afternoon?
I'm great, actually. It's been a good day so far, right? We started things off with a Star Citizen Live reaction, where we listened to the most recent Master Modes talk. They had a Q&A episode that went online. But other than that, you know what's really got me in such a great mood? In
What's
terms of
that?
Star Citizen? I don't know if you've seen this or not, but jump gates are working. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I honestly thought it would be worse than what it is. But yeah, so since there's Evocati test this weekend, with the jump point working between Stanton and Pyro, and since they've recently changed the NDA for Evocati, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like from what reports I've been reading, it's working. There's a little stutter when it first starts. Other than that, like no lag. It's going from Stanton to Pyro. I forget for how long people were saying, maybe like 20-ish seconds. You can walk around your ship while you're doing it, see other people in it. Maybe even heard reports of being able to fire your weapons.
Yeah.
Whether that's intended or not, we don't really know. But yeah, it looks like it's working. So hell yeah.
Yeah, we've been waiting for this for so long. And for anybody that's not in the know, Evocati testing is like the earliest version of a test server, right? For players to start to get their hands on whatever the upcoming patch is. And in this case, it's 3.23. And yeah, we've been waiting so long for this tech to work, and it seems like it's finally here.
But Stubb, it's just a fancy loading screen. Why do they care about loading screens in 2024? Every game has that.
Yeah, it's nice to see. I saw Salty Mike and then some other people on Twitter were all posting about how they were able to successfully make the jump from Pyro to Stanton to Pyro. For people that haven't been following the project for as long as others, maybe it doesn't seem like such a big deal on the outside, but this is a significant point of Star Citizen becoming Star Citizen.
Yep.
We're supposed to have 100
first one to work before we can get the rest of them, right?
Yeah, we're supposed to have 100 systems in game. Currently we've had one for a long time, and Pyro has been worked on. We've had some preview channel sessions. We haven't personally, but some players have had that, and they've been able to get some hands-on time with it. Some people at CitizenCon last year were able to get some hands-on time with Pyro, but it was disjointed. Right, it wasn't connected to Stanton, and now it is, and that's exciting. So yeah, really hyped for that. I'm curious still on when 3.23 is actually going to hit PTU. I'm still hopeful that that's going to be at some point during March, but we'll see. But it sounds like things are starting to come together. Right, they've had previous replication layer tests, server mesh tests that seem like this is going to have to cook a bit longer before it's ready. People waiting several minutes for a server to come back online and that sort of thing. And now we've had recent tests where like, no, we had to wait a minute or two for it to come back online, and now we've got jump gates working. It's good. I feel like we're about to ride a small wave of positivity off of this one thing alone, which we need heading into 3.23 because it's not all been positive. But yeah, jump points up and working with the Evocati build. They also gave us a roadmap roundup this week. Not a ton on the roadmap roundup, but a couple interesting things to note, including image upscaling and a volumetric clouds update. The image upscaling stuff, I don't understand a lot of the technical jargon involved with this, but I take it all to mean that the game will start to look even better than it already does, and hopefully this will help with some rendering with people. Everybody's got a different PC setup. It's very uncommon to run into somebody that's running the exact same rig that you are, so maybe this will help general performance. I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, make it look better and run better, hopefully.
Yes. And then also that volumetric clouds update. We've joked a lot just off air over the years about volumetric clouds, and they do look really good. But yeah, they're continuing to improve the visual quality of them, and also we're getting the implementation of ground fog, which I am legit I'm not excited for it in the same way that I'm excited for some of the different gameplay updates coming. But we've talked before, planets feel a little barren, a little dead, so this is one more sort of atmospheric detail that they can add to the game to just make it feel more immersive. I know we're talking about fog, but
I think they showed it off some at CitizenCon, with the new light scattering and fog coming in and stuff. That was I think they had wanted to get it in last year with that last patch, but that didn't happen. Yeah, I love spending time on planets, even if we're not like doing a whole lot. And exploration and stuff like that is going to be probably one of my favorite parts of the game. So anytime we get something to improve the look of planets, I like it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Also, ISC this week was a pretty good one. So Master Modes has been getting a lot of the conversation currently, but also they're making a lot of FPS changes as well as part of 3.23. And they talked to us a bit more this week about that.
Yeah, we have a react up for the ISC last week. If you guys haven't checked that out, by the way.
Yes. And so, like Master Modes, there's people for the changes coming, against the changes that are coming. There's concerns all around, people that want to hear us talk a little bit more specifically about things like the changes they're making to scopes, for example. Can check out that react. But I'm still in a point, I think, with FPS changes to where overall I'm feeling pretty good about what they've been showing. But like anything else, it's gonna be rebalanced, retuned, et cetera, once it actually hits the game. But CIG's being a lot better within the past couple weeks, talking about some of these more hot button issues, I guess we could say, addressing the player base some. Let's see. Also, we got a couple monthly reports as well. So up on the Star Citizen website, there's the PU monthly report, and then they emailed out the Squadron 42 monthly report. Both of those have a CommLink alert as well, currently available on our YouTube and Spotify for you. But let's talk about some of the things in those monthly reports, some of those juicier bits.
Do you want to talk about FPS for a minute?
Sure. Yeah, we can go back to FPS if you want to. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we did that react last week, and we talked a little bit at length at the end of the video about some of the stuff in there, like the dynamic crosshair and the kill markers, and the sniper glint, stuff like that.
Yep.
And it seems like maybe not as divisive as Master Modes, but some of the FPS updates have divided some of the community where, some people are okay with it being a little more arcadey, and other people want to keep it more hardcore, sim-like, stuff like that. But overall, I like most of the FPS changes that are coming in. Some of the stuff like the kill marker and hit markers showing on your crosshair, I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. I feel like stuff like that is maybe a little more for Arena Commander mode, Star Marine, stuff like that. And we talked a little at length about the sniper glint and stuff. But overall, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I don't know how you are.
Yeah, for sure. The sniper glint is an issue in particular that we talked about. I think what they're currently saying about the sniper glint feels a little bit like what will hopefully be a short-term band-aid, more so than a permanent solution. Like, if you're gonna have snipers in your game, and you're gonna have this huge, massive open world style of game, it it's in the nature of snipers to be at long distances and hard to spot and to be able to take shots on you from long, long ranges. I if your balance to that is, "Okay, well, since that's difficult for people to counter, we're just gonna make it to where the sniper immediately gives himself away every time he looks down his scope." I'm not really on board with that. I think you need to come up with some better options to counterbalance snipers than essentially, I think I call it on the React, it's like a god marker for your sniper, right? And that's for anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about there. Currently in Star Citizen, for a long time, if you took a player bounty, you would have a marker on your screen letting you know where that bounty is, like specifically, not just they're in the general Crusader area or they're in the general Microtech area, whatever it is. Like, no, you've got a pinpoint location that's known as a god marker. And to me, if you're sniping and if anytime somebody just looks in the general direction that you're sniping from and there's this glint that's happening, that might as well be a god marker for snipers, right? And in the same way that we don't want god markers for bounties, I don't want them for snipers either. So either my thing is either fucking take them out of the game if it seems like people aren't going to be able to handle what sniper gameplay should be, or find a better way of doing it other than just no, you're giving away your location constantly anytime you look down your scope.
Yeah, even for like recon stuff, we don't have binoculars or any way to really zoom in our field of view right now, other than looking through scopes.
Right.
And even if you're not trying to kill someone and just get information on Jumptown, who's there, what kind of equipment does my org need to bring, just stuff like that. I don't know. It feels bad when you're gonna always be seen using a sniper scope, and I don't know if they've thought about certain scopes not having glint, like you go by this special one that doesn't reflect the light or whatever. But if it's always, even in the pitch black, like down in a cave, having glint on your scope, it feels arcadey. It just feels like a band-aid, not fixing the issue of people being able to deal with snipers. So yeah, I feel like they need to hopefully revisit that one. Even if it's not immediately down the road, they take another look at that, give players some more options to deal with snipers, but don't handicap the snipers just because other players don't have a way to deal with them right now.
Yeah, to me, in a large scale open world environment, when you're thinking about sniping and the changes that they're making to the glint, positioning is part of being a skilled sniper, right? Making sure that you're in a spot to where the sunlight coming down from the star isn't hitting your scope, right? That sort of situational awareness, in my mind, helps to divide between a sniper that is amateur hour versus a sniper that knows what they're doing. Right. So if you keep a scope glint that is reacting to the light in the game in a natural way, to me, that makes sense in Star Citizen. But if you're constantly exposing yourself with that glint, regardless of what the lighting scenario is in the game, to me, that breaks what Star Citizen has been pitched as in a way, right? Because yeah, we know they're not going full sim on everything, but they have been very clear that they want a fair amount of reality in Star Citizen as far as the way physics work and that sort of thing. They're just really missing the mark with this particular issue to me. And it's not even like I'm a big sniper in Star Citizen. I can't tell you the last
Right.
time I went up on a ridge with a sniper rifle and was waiting to, crack somebody in the head that's just aimlessly walking around the planet or whatever. Like I've brought one from time to time to something like a jump town before, or just to mess around with if we're taking like a mission to kill some NPCs at an outpost or something, try to pop off some shots from a long distance. But I can't really think of many times where I've brought a sniper into a PvP situation in game, you know. Um, so it's not like I'm just crying like, oh, they're making it harder for me to be a sniper without, any sort of resistance or people able to counter me or what. It's not that. It's just to me it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it really doesn't. Neither one of us really are big snipers. I mean, we bounty hunt from time to time, but most of the time it's either ship combat or down in a bunker or at SPK or whatever. So the times that we use snipers are few and far between, but it just, we're not sitting here crying like, oh, we're losing the ability to snipe and stuff like that. But it just fundamentally doesn't feel good in a game that's supposed to be quote unquote realistic and sim like. It feels like Call of Duty, like an arcade shooter, and that, in my opinion, that's not what this game is trying to be. But I don't know. I'm not trying to like just hammer this issue in, but like I don't know. It seems like a small thing, but it can lead to so many different types of gameplay, and you're just taking that away from people.
And the small thing is indicative of just game design principles moving forward, right? Whether it's the FPS or whether it's the master mode stuff, the people that have been on the side of, hey, this seems like a bad decision to make for Star Citizen, their general complaints have been, this feels arcadey. This is making this game feel more arcadey, whether it's in the ship or it's on foot. I understand wanting to make the game more accessible to people, to where there's not as much of a learning curve or a barrier to entry to get into the game. I understand that desire, but you can't get yourself into a situation where you're trying to make your game every game and make everybody happy. And that's something that Jared, I think, even mentioned on Star Citizen Live this week. There's going to be people that are both happy and unhappy with all of the decisions made. Like, it's common sense, right? When you're talking about millions and millions of people, there's not going to be a single decision where everybody is like, okay, cool, I'm good with this. Other than maybe like the star map, that might be the closest thing that we can get to. Is I feel like 99.9% of the Star Citizen player base, they want that new star map online, right? But when it comes to the other vast majority of like gameplay changes being made, there's going to be pros and cons. But again, going back to this one particular issue of the scope glint, that does give more credence, I think, to, at least in my mind, to the people that are sort of sounding the alarm of, Star Citizen might be becoming a little too arcadey. It gives them some credence, I think, because it's, in my mind, that's undeniably an arcadey route to take with the scope glint. So, if they're doing it with something as small as scope glint,
I think you put it a good way when you said they're trying to make it more accessible. For new players, because even in the Star Citizen Live we just recorded a react to, Yogi was talking about bringing the skill floor lower for ship combat, and this is one of those things that feels like they're trying to lower that bar for FPS combat, which, like, dynamic crosshair, fine. It's only for military helmets. Hit markers, you can turn them off, fine. Whatever, but the scope glint is just, I don't know why I'm like getting so bent on it, but it's just like it's bringing down that FPS skill level to cater more to new players, and that kind of feels bad when this mechanic in particular, you can't even learn a skill to overcome it. If you're a sniper, you're just always going to have to deal with it. You can't get better at your positioning. You can't get better at hiding. You can't. There's no way. There's nothing for you to do, and it feels like, I don't know if there was a particular amount of people crying like, "Oh, at Jump Town, I always die to snipers. I get one hit by snipers all the time. I don't know what to do. I don't like." Okay, but like, there's a skill there that you can learn how to counteract snipers with tools they might give us in the future, hopefully. Night vision, thermal vision, FPS scanning, stuff like that, to counteract these people who have spent the time to get better at sniping, and you've spent the time to get better at counteracting them. So yeah, it doesn't feel good when it feels like they're bringing that skill way down and trying to cater to like new players and more people, because I think one of the Helldivers 2 devs said it really well: a game for everyone is a game for no one. So I know we're in development. This can all change. They're testing stuff. So yeah, I don't want Star Citizen to try and become that game for everyone. It still needs to have that some level of hardcore feeling and, progressing in your skill other than just numbers on a screen.
Yeah, 100%. And there's something to say about just deciding what kind of game you're trying to make and sticking to that, because if you stick true to that vision, like, it will attract people. If you think about all the different kinds of shooters on the market, from, if you want to go back to 1992, baby, with Wolfenstein 3D, or all the way up to where we are with 2024 with first person shooters, there's a huge wide spectrum of different shooter styles, right? And for me personally, I'm somebody that can enjoy those different styles. Like, if you want to go back and you want to play the boomer shooters, I'm in. If you want to play something more arcadey like Call of Duty, I'm in. If you want to play something that's a little bit more tactical in its nature and requires more tactical strategy, with a game like, say, a Ready or Not, or a Squad, or any of those where they're trying to make it feel a little bit more realistic with the shooter aspects, I'm game for that too. I'll play Fortnite. You know what I mean? Like, as long as it's well balanced and well made, you will find your audience. But if you're constantly going back and forth between, no, we want to be more realistic, no, we want to be more arcadey, no, we want there to be a higher learning curve, nope, we want it to be more accessible, we want people to be able to hit a higher skill level, really, and invest time into getting good at our game's mechanics, nope, we're going to change all that, and we're going to make it all easier to get into. Like, when you just got to pick one. Otherwise, both sides are going to be constantly pissed off. The people that want it more realistic and the people that want it more arcadey. And to be fair, the people that want it more realistic, I feel like that is a more accurate representation of how this game has been sold over the years. I've heard Arma be brought up a lot when we talk about, the FPS components of Star Citizen, and a lot of the talks from the devs over the years, like, they have referenced that more Arma style of gameplay. And that new upcoming FPS changes are much closer to like a Call of Duty than an Arma, right? And I'm not shitting on Call of Duty in particular, or arcadey shooters, because, again, I'm hoping that people remember, I just said I play those too, but that's not what Star Citizen was supposed to be. It's not what they said.
Right.
Now, also, you do have to keep in mind when talking about this, while they're talking about what Star Citizen is going to be over the years, they have also said over the years, in progress, alpha, subject to change. We're going to see what works, what doesn't work, make changes accordingly, and try new things out. So,
yeah, maybe that's why I'm bringing this up so much, is because this is an in development game and things can be changed, and that's one of the things I would like to see changed, is to this FPS they need to pick a lane and they need to go for it and stop trying to please people on both sides, or they're not going to please anyone. And FPS is a big part of Star Citizen for us. So that's why we talked about it in the React, and I wanted to bring it up again and maybe get some other people's opinions on it, other than just us. But I've seen some people that don't really care about the glint. They're like, okay, that's great, and they've talked about different snipers having different roles, and stuff like that. But yeah, the glint feels bad, and I hope the discussion can continue about how we can still have ways to counteract snipers, but not just handicap them completely.
Yeah, and again, it's not just about the glint. It's about what that glint represents to the overall game design philosophy going forward.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I don't know what else to say other than I hope CIG are able to commit to one path or the other and just continue down that path and make the best of it that they can. I've been through, okay, this is really going off the outline here, but I've been thinking about this. CIG is making substantial changes to the way that we experience combat in the game, whether on foot or in a ship. And yes, Star Citizen is in development. Yes, all subject to change. And so this analogy or this comparison I'm about to make isn't a one-to-one because it wasn't a game that was still unreleased. But there was a little game that a lot of people in the Star Citizen community have brought up over the years. It's called Star Wars Galaxies. And Star Wars Galaxies was an MMO that ran from, I think it was 2003 to 2012. And when it first launched, it had a very particular combat style that was, from what I understand, I never played EverQuest, but it was much more close to, say, an EverQuest in nature of his combat than, say, World of Warcraft that would come out just a couple years after. And, like anything else, some people liked the initial combat system and skill system in the game, and other people found it to not be their cup of tea. But it started off as a game where you had a set number of points that you could invest into 33 different professions, and you could really have some highly customized characters. You could have different combat disciplines that you wanted to focus on. Your character could be a mix of range and melee, or all melee, all range. Maybe they would have some healing abilities, or maybe that they would have some sort of crafting abilities in addition to their combat prowess, or maybe your character was all non-combat and you stuck to buffing players in a cantina and hanging out and being a social player. Like, you had all of these different directions that you could go into with these 33 different professions that you could mix and match from. And then one day, I'll do the long story short, years after the game had already been out, years after people have already decided if they like or do not like the current version of the game, they decided to do what was called new game enhancements, also known as the NGE. And the new game enhancements, I forget exactly what year they came out. I want to say we're talking somewhere close to like 08, 09, a handful of years after the game had already been out and on the market. And NGE took those 33 professions that you can mix and match from, that you could choose to customize your character from, into 9 basic MMO classes.
That feels bad.
And it fundamentally changed the way that the game felt, the way the game played, how you interacted with combat, because it wasn't just the class system that changed, but also the way that combat felt in the game too. It felt more World of Warcraft at that point than it did EverQuest. And I remember, at the time, because the Galaxies was my first MMO, so I remember the early days, what it felt like. There was another change that happened in between launch and NGE. It was called the Combat Update, that it changed some of the UI up a bit, but still your professions were there, your skill points that you can mix and match, they were still there, but it did change a little bit of how the combat felt, but it still felt pretty darn close to the original version, whereas NGE completely changed it. And I'm worried. I bring all of this up to say that I'm worried that Star Citizen is in a similar place, because I remember when there was the talk about the NGE, and it was a pretty sudden change. There wasn't this huge lead up like we've had with master modes and we've had with FPS changes over here in Star Citizen. It was a pretty sudden change of like, oh, hey, by the way, guys, I forget how long it was, but our next big patch or our next big update that comes out in a couple weeks or a couple months or whatever is going to have these seismic changes. And what ended up happening to Star Wars Galaxies after that change was within a week or two, I think they lost something like 200,000 subscribers.
Damn. That's a lot.
And within a couple weeks, I was one of them. Because I remember going into NGE being like, well, it kind of stinks. They're kind of lumping all these classes into 9 basic classes instead of the 33 sprawling ones that you can mix and match from. Kind of sucks. The other thing was they made Jedi available as a starting class right off the bat with NGE, and that also ruffled feathers, but that's a different thing. But I remember thinking like, yeah, people are going to be upset, but it's still going to be Star Wars Galaxies. It's still going to fundamentally be the same game that we've been enjoying for years. And that's not what happened. I was very naive. I was very dismissive of all the woes. Like I knew some people were going to leave, but I didn't expect essentially for servers overnight to turn into ghost towns like they did. And I don't know if that's going to happen with 323. But I am afraid that that's going to happen. You know what I mean? That there is going to be a mass exodus that CIG isn't anticipating on, because you've got 2 different, not that there's not some crossover, but generally speaking, you've got 2 different segments of the player base upset with you at the same time. You've got the dogfighters upset with you, and you've got whatever we want to call them, but the FPS players also very upset with you simultaneously. And some people have talked about, leaving the project behind. And that's been something else that's happened over the years for various different reasons. But it does feel like there's more of a ground swelling of people using that sort of language going into 323. So I'm curious on how CIG is going to handle things going forward. Do I think that this is Star Citizen's NGE moment, to where the player base just kind of falls apart? No, but also didn't think that about the NGE itself when it hit Star Wars Galaxies years ago. So I don't know where we're at right now, to be honest. I don't know where the bulk of the player base is sitting at with 323. I think it's a real mix of both excitement and anxiety simultaneously.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for 323 and everything, but yeah, some of these changes are big changes, and some people don't like change, and sometimes change is hard to get used to and stuff. But yeah, it's this they can't try and cater to everyone, and I do fear that with master modes and these new FPS changes, they're moving in that direction. Mm-hmm. But if it's, I can't speak to master modes as much because I'm not a combat pilot. But I do play FPS games every week. I shoot at things and play various FPS games and stuff. So, I hope they aren't trying to dumb it down for, the Call of Duty people, or I'm not trying to shit on Call of Duty. It's just more of a jump in and play
kind of game.
Yeah. And hit markers and kill markers and sniper glints on that. It doesn't matter as much. You die and you come back in seconds in those games. And something like Star Citizen, you're planning out every single step of your gameplay by what equipment you run, how you set up your ship, what ship you fly, and I don't know, just to make that feel less important and Yeah, I don't know. I just don't want them to dumb it down for everyone. You know, that's basically what we're trying to get at here. Is
And I think when we're talking about these things too, I'm not necessarily upset about the skill floor being lowered, but I do feel for the people that are talking about the skill ceiling also being lowered. You know, these are people
Yeah.
that are saying, I like what you're doing with your game. I want to invest a ton of time into it and get really good at it. So these are very passionate players. And I don't want to completely disregard what they're saying, even if I'm not at that skill level. I like that other people are. You know what I mean? Because that keeps
Yeah.
things interesting for us too. Like if we're going on a bounty, what kind of bounty are we about to take? Is this somebody that has a way lower skill level than us? Is this somebody that has, essentially the same skill level of us? Or is this somebody that could smoke us in seconds and not think twice
Yeah.
about it? And having that sort of element of the unknown when you're going onto a bounty hunt, like that is part of the underlying excitement of it, even if we're not consciously thinking those things the whole time as we're trying to catch the person. In the back of our heads, we know that the playing field isn't going to be exactly level as far as skill goes. And it feels like master modes and some of these FPS changes, master modes more so in particular, I think, than FPS, is trying to mash that skill level down. And I think CIG is at this point crystal clear aware of it. It's just going to be a matter of what changes are they going to make to master modes going forward to accommodate those players that are really, really getting into the nitty gritty of the flight mechanics and how combat works in the game. It's important not to let those people go. I think that's basically all I'm saying, because those people have been here for a long time. They've invested time and money in this game, and they have, when you're talking about your elite level PvPers, they do have an understanding, like a deep understanding of the systems in game, even if they themselves wouldn't be able to sit down at a computer and be like, okay, recreate this as a game dev. They're still filling all of the game dev work every time they're putting in countless hours into the game. And for those that are just completely disregarding those people, I think there's a real mistake is being made. And I don't think that's as much on the CIG front as it is other people in the player base being like, whatever, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. Yeah, I don't know. CIG is making one hell of a game here where, what's the whole concept of the game supposed to be? You be what you want, right? You want to be a mercenary? Do you want to be a bounty hunter? Do you want to be a trader? Do you want to be a miner? Do you want to be a tow truck operator in space? Whatever it is that you're trying to do, it's a huge scope. It's a massive scope. And I'm not envious of the devs that are trying to bring all of this together. Because it's a hell of a task, and people get emotionally charged very easily about a whole array of things in life, and video games are no exception to that. I hope for the best for 323 and for CIG in particular, because they're going to have a real mess on their hands.
Yeah.
Just as far as player-based reaction goes.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of these things have only been tested by a handful of players, especially the FPS stuff. I don't think
that's
many
such an
people
important point.
Yeah,
yes.
Experienced that. So we'll have to see where 323 goes, and hopefully, if enough people bring up the fact that we don't want Star Citizen catering to everyone, I mean, there needs to be a level of accessibility there. But we don't need to dumb it down for the common gamer, because Star Citizen is already a niche game, and one, it's sci-fi. Two, it's a not necessarily space sim, but it's going for a more realistic, planning out stuff. You're not instantly jumping into combat or what you're doing. You're having to plan, coordinate, do stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully 323 is not the start of them dumbing it down, if that's the right words to use. But yeah, we'll just have to see. But I think that's a good segue into our monthly report, because they talk about a lot of stuff they've been working on for 323 in the monthly report, and some stuff that might be coming after.
Yes, they do. So the first thing up that we've got here in the outline underneath the monthly report, we've already touched on a bit, right? They talk about continuing work on jump points, and obviously they just had a pretty successful Evocati test with jump points functioning, people able to go back and forth between systems. The resource network and engineering stuff that they talked about was also of note, including heat gameplay. Enables items generate heat based off the usage, right? They've shown off before some of the fire tech they've been working on. We've talked about fire extinguishers in the game, all that sort of stuff. That seems to be getting closer. I don't know if resource network and engineering.
In the notes there, it says items will require coolant if necessary, and degrade in functionality, yada yada. So I wonder if coolant is going to be another one of those things like quantum fuel and ammo and oxygen in our suits. It's going to be another one of those things we have to keep up with.
I hope that when your quantum drive starts to overheat, the answer to that the engineering gameplay solution to that, you ready for this? You take out your multi-tool and you select coolant or whatever they're going to call that mode, and then this nice icy bloom beam comes out and cools it down,
baby.
That's it.
That's
More
right.
beams. Oh gosh. Let's see. Yeah, the resource network stuff, they teased a good bit, even on Star Citizen Live, like, hey, we want to talk about this more in depth with another team, right? Is what they were saying this week on the show. I'm looking forward to seeing more about resource network and how exactly how fully fleshed it's going to be coming into 323. I guess is one way of putting it. Like how
I don't think resource network is coming at all in 323, right? And the only capacity is arena commander. We're going to have the arena commander mode to test it.
Yeah, let me be more specific. I don't think resource network and engineering gameplay is coming online to PU with 323, but over the life cycle of 323, as we get into 323.1.2, like, do we think this is going to come online in 323 at all, or is resource network more of a 4.0 thing? I guess is what I'm getting at.
From what I can tell, I think it's more of a 4.0 because they're putting in that arena commander mode with 323, and from what I've seen, I think it's you're going to have the A2 and the Gladius available, and one mode's going to be a Gladius versus a crewed A2, and the other one's a A2 versus A2, with your crew, however many you choose it to be. Okay. So I'm pretty excited for that because, resource management is just one of the first steps into really making multi-crewing necessary for these larger ships, and that's one of the things that I really got into Star Citizen about was multi-crew, because I used to play Elite Dangerous a lot, and one of my big things on it was you can't go on somebody's ship and be an asset to them. I mean, you can't really. I mean, I guess you can sit in the co-pilot seat and do a few things, but you can't really go on somebody else's ship and interact in a way that's helpful to them or make it better or whatever. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to multi-crewing and resource network and stuff coming, but I don't think it's going to be a 323 thing.
Yeah, definitely not right out of the gate at the very least, or maybe not at all. Life support. Now fully integrated into the resource network with life support generator and the tank now functional. That's pretty cool, actually. Nice little tidbit from the monthly report there on life support. And the fact that it's functional is nice to read, even if it's not in game right now. It's nice to know when things are working with Star Citizen. Let's see. Radar and scanning the core gameplay completed important refactor, reduced number of radar components on vehicles, share data between seat operators. This actually, I think this was pretty cool. So it talked about previously how each seat operator had a unique radar, but now it's going to be shared across radars, right? So if you're in the pilot seat or a co-pilot seat and you're doing a scan, I think this means that now if somebody else is in a turret, they'll be able to get that same radar information and not have to go back and do their own scan, right? Instead, they're just immediately able to get it and react to that information as needed. Another a little tidbit for multi-crew, making it more viable, making it feel better, because just sitting here and thinking about it, if somebody on the bridge of a ship is already doing all the scans, why do I in the back turret need to also be doing scans as well? Like, it just doesn't make too terribly much information. We got some green screen shenanigans going on. Looks like somebody's puppies.
It's their dinner time and mom's not home, so they're bothering me today.
Oh no. Okay. Well, with that in mind, for the sake of the puppies, I'll hurry up and finish what I was saying there so we can keep this thing moving. Multi-crew is something that we've been talking about for a long time with Star Citizen. And this just sounds like one more thing coming online to make that more viable and more efficient, right?
Yeah, they've been talking about scanning updates and stuff for a while. So any little bits of what future scanning is going to look like is good information.
Yeah. Other thing they touched on, we talk about Arena Commander here all the time, so won't harp on it too much, but engineering work for custom lobbies is nearing completion. I'm pretty excited about that so that we can have some private matches going on, especially if we, ever happen to have some sort of, say, tournament series that we would like to do in Arena Commander someday. Custom lobbies will help get us there. Also began focusing on Arena Commander front end. An update was made to reputation. Now this is pretty big. A lot of people have been talking about the reputation system and how it's a great need for Star Citizen at this point. I am one of those people. So an update was made to reputation-based hostility, ensuring that if someone is being attacked, any nearby allied or security faction members will come to their defense. Also means that factions with negative reputation with the attacked players will not intervene. Something that we've talked about a lot, this good boy versus bad boy gameplay choices that are made. Whether are you going to be lawful or are you going to be criminal? And currently in the game, you can be as criminal as you want. You can go and murder 50 other players, and you can attack SPK, and you can go after security and blah 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 blah. All the bad boy things you want to do. Right. And once you finally die or you finally get sent to prison, whatever way you get there, you're going to be given a sentence, and you'll have to wait anywhere from, depending on what you did, 15 minutes to hours potentially. Right. But once that prison sentence is over, you're good. It doesn't matter if you've killed 1,000 other players in the game. It doesn't matter if you've killed, 10,000 security workers at Hurston. Once you've served that prison sentence, those NPCs are going to go right back to reacting to you and engaging with you, same as they would any other player that did none of those things. They're gonna interact with you the same way that they're interacting with the space UPS delivery guy that just started his job 2 weeks ago. Meanwhile, you've got this body count behind you, and I'm not talking about that kind of body count. I'm talking about life and death body count. Just this path of destruction that you've taken, and currently in game, no biggie once you serve your prison sentence or clear your crime stats somewhere. Yeah, it's like, oh, none of that stuff ever happened. And it's just not realistic. It's not realistic.
We've had multiple conversations on the podcast and React videos and even off air about reputation and how it's kind of one of the core components of what I think Star Citizen is going to be.
Right.
So to see this in the monthly report that they finally have some faction members, security reacting to you differently based on reputation, that is awesome. Because I think that is very much needed. And that's one of those things that I feel like they got to nail down before Pyro with all those gangs and how you're going to be able to choose which gang you affiliate with, or it's going to matter what stations you can land at and refuel at and stuff like that. So, more reputation stuff, please.
Yep. We're finally getting some. Finally. Not as in-depth as it will be someday, but hey, in this case, I think this is an example of something's better than nothing. So start with hostility and keep working it from there. But yeah, I'm really excited for it. It doesn't make any sense how it currently works in game. Let's say you were running a company, right? And you had this worker that just went postal one day, killed a few people, served his time in prison, whatever, 20, 30 years. And now he's out. And he wants a job back at the company. In current Star Citizen logic, you'd be like, okay, yeah, sure. Come on back in. What's the worst that could happen? But in reality, you'd be like, yeah, you went to prison, debt to society, et cetera, et cetera. But I still remember what you did to poor old Frank 20 years ago. I don't think I'm going to hire you back. I don't think we're going to be personally cool with each other. I don't think our interactions with each other is going to be on the best, friendliest terms after what you did to Frank, you son of a bitch. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, bring that on. That also goes back into so many things like you just talked about, the balancing of a system like Pyro, but also just again our human nature. That's super gamey. Oh, I can do all these terrible things, spend a couple hours in prison, or just log out for the night, and the next time I log back in, I'm a free man, and just everybody's going to react to me the same way. Just no bueno. So glad they're making this change. Some other changes. Economy. So from the report, they talked about making changes to bring salvage more in line with other PU careers. Also currently rebalancing commodities to improve the cargo career experience as well. They've also made some talk about, they've changing like FPS ammo prices and that sort of thing. When we talk economy and Star Citizen, it feels like we're talking about two different things a lot of the time. So I feel like when we talk about economy and things that we want to see in Star Citizen, we're talking about Quanta. What the hell's going on with Quanta? All the background systems, economic systems in place. What is that looking like? How's it shaping up? How close is it being ready for the game? Has any work been done lately on it? I don't know. But this is more so like mission payout, commodity prices, which is, yes, technically part of economy, but not the most interesting stuff that they're doing in the background, supposedly, right? But still, we do need professions to be, I think, more in line with each other, right? You want to respect people's time. And I'm not saying every career should have the same exact payouts all the time. But, if I'm somebody, I've only got 3 hours to play the game tonight, let's say. If I make the decision off of make the decision what I'm going to spend those 3 hours doing, it would be nice to know that my payout, the money my character is going to make, will at least be similar, whether or not I decided to go off and do mercenary missions for those few hours, or whether I decided to go off and do cargo hauling for those few hours. I do not think it should be an exact 1-to-1, right? But it feels bad to me. Say if you knew that, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, but if you knew that in 3 hours, the mercenary made 100,000 credits, but then the cargo hauler made 50,000 credits. That's a huge discrepancy, right? And now you can talk about other things like, well, did the cargo pilot blow up and have to restock and start over? But let's say everything's going well. Everything's going well for the cargo hauler. Everything's also going well for the mercenary. I don't want there to be a huge payout gap like that. Does that make sense? Am I talking crazy over here?
No, that makes sense. I mean, for the longest time, anytime economy has been brought up in Star Citizen, oh, we're not increasing the refresh rate of a commodity or whatever, or the buy rate at a station because the economy, it'll screw up the economy, has been pretty much a joke, right?
Right.
Because they haven't really balanced anything for other professions against each other. Ship prices, ammo prices, fuel prices, quanta, how everything acts in the background. It's all just been, yeah, there's an economy there, but we don't know anything about it. So, yeah, just the fact that they're looking at, ammo prices and how professions payouts interact with or go together, stuff like that. It's good to hear. And yeah, hopefully we get some quanta news sometime this year. But
I hope so, man. Tony Z, where you at?
Yeah, I joke about the economy and stuff a lot on here, but yeah, I wanted to get to a place where it's not a joke and it actually matters to players.
Yeah, we've been talking about that for a long time. Like right now in Star Citizen, once you have the ships that you want, there's not really a lot else to do with your money. I mean, you can go buy some clothes and role play or something, and like you need some money to keep your ship fueled up and ammo available and all that, but it doesn't really cost that much to do those things.
Yeah,
it's definitely it's not even really an afterthought. So yeah, I'm happy that they're going to be retinkering with contract payouts and that sort of thing, but I still want to know more big picture economy stuff, and I think a lot of people do. And like you said,
oh yeah,
hopefully we'll get more of that this year. They've got another 2 days of CitizenCon to fill up this year, so maybe economy will get some more love this time around.
yeah.
But also hopefully we won't have to wait until October to get another significant update on the economy. But hey, who knows? The development of Xenothreat 1.2 continued with changes to gameplay, implementation of freight elevators, Blockade Runner received a polish as well. Xenothreat's been around for a while. It's nice to see that it's getting some more love. I think for both of us, it's one of our more favorite events in the game. Not that there's a ton to choose from, but of the ones that are available, Xenothreat usually gets I think a little bit more love from us. That talk about implementing freight elevators into it is it's interesting to me that we're talking about elevators so much in general in Star Citizen. But hey, hype for that, I guess. I don't know. I'm looking forward to checking out Xenothreat 1.2. Hopefully the elevators are cool. I don't know what else to say about them.
Yeah, I want to see. We haven't seen Xenothreat come back in a while, so yeah, the blockade runner event should be a good time too. So yeah, I hope we get to see that soon.
Yeah, for sure. This is I'm really actually excited for this next part. I'm just going to read this bullet point. Looking further forward, progress continued on future story missions. These will be more involved than typical missions, featuring things like bespoke dialogue and custom logic. The hope is that these types of missions will serve to build out the story of the wider universe and work alongside with more traditional systemic missions. Our missions in game are pretty fucking generic right now. There are some where there's like a narrative experience thrown in there. Kovalex is one that comes to mind immediately. You get a bit here and there, but for the most part, 9 out of 10 times when you're taking a contract, are you even checking? Are you reading the text? Are you getting involved with the story of the mission that you're about to go play out, where you've got to take out these 15 criminals that have taken over a bunker, or where you've got to infiltrate this reclaimer and make through the different. Is anybody paying attention to the story part of that? Not really. You probably do your first time or two, but for the most part, there's not a lot of meat on the bones as far as a narrative goes. So if they're going to start to take that up a new level, right? Maybe make NPC quest givers a bigger part of the verse. There's Twitch in there and there's some other people in there, but when's the last time you ran to an NPC to go pick up a mission and you felt invested with their story?
Yeah, I feel like most of the mission givers that do have a little story, like Twitch and what is it, the Arlington Gang mission?
Mm-hmm.
I think there might have used to be one at Levski when it was around. But yeah, they're pretty few and far in between. This kind of, we had that episode a few months ago. I forget exactly which episode number it was, where we talked about that little leaked document talking about Star Citizen 1.0, and there's stuff like this, where they're talking about story missions that was in that document that kind of lends to that 1.0 on the horizon. And yeah, we definitely need missions like this to we're playing an MMO, right? So we need story missions outside of Squadron 42 to give us context of what kind of universe we're living in, and who likes who and who doesn't like each other, and why am I doing this, and story behind it all. And that's pretty exciting.
It is. I'm fully on board with them pursuing this. And the featuring things like bespoke dialogue and custom logic. It sounds like a small thing, but it's gonna make it feel so much more, I hate using this word still, but immersive. Like like you're visiting real planets with real cities with real personalities down there on the surface level, instead of it just being, sometimes Star Citizen can feel too much like a sandbox. And what I mean by that is a sandbox game in its purest sense will have very little to no direction whatsoever, which is fine for a lot of games. But when you're making a game and you're selling it as, we want this to feel like a lived-in galaxy or lived-in universe, whatever, it takes some personality to do that. It takes some interaction with, one, in an online environment, other players, yes, but two, also with NPCs that you feel some kind of way about. Is this an annoying person? Is this an interesting person? Is this a smart person? Is this a fun person? Is this a shady person? Is this an honorable person? Whatever it might be, like, these sorts of missions will help give us more of that. That's my hope, at least, that it'll make it feel, think about your day-to-day life. Like when you're going and you're working your job with your boss, that boss, whether you love them, hate them, or somewhere in between, they've got a real personality, good, bad, or otherwise. And you're going to get to know that personality, and that's going to affect the way that you approach your job, your work, your overall mood that you have when you're getting things done or not getting things done. It's going to impact your thoughts that you're having on your way to work and on your way back home from work. All of these things are going to be affected. Your whole day, your general day, can be affected by the personalities you're encountering at work. And those sorts of experiences are going to determine, is this a place I'm going to stick with? Maybe yes, maybe no. Depends on what your coworkers are like, what management is like. It's the same thing to me with these story missions. What kind of work am I going to go out and pursue is now going to be, at least on some level, determined by how much am I enjoying being around this character, right? Is this interesting to me? Am I feeling any sort of emotional investment? I know that when we're playing an MMO, typically the storylines that we're given aren't going to give you this huge emotional charge where it's going to bring you to tears or bring you to laughter. It can. I'm not saying that every scripted mission and storyline has to be The Godfather in space with really deep interpersonal relations being exposed throughout the course of the narrative. It doesn't have to be that deep, but I do want it to be deeper than it currently is, where it's like, hey, we need some supplies. Go take them from point A to point B and you'll get money when you're done.
Yep.
That's not interesting, you know? It's just not. So
Yeah, you have to get people emotionally invested. And
yeah,
not just the world, the people that live in it.
I want to help this character, or I want to help take this character down. I want to work for them, work with them, or work against them.
Yeah.
And I want there to be something more to it than just the payout. And you know, I think this will help with that. Let's
Absolutely.
see. They continue on saying, further to this, large contingent of the department's working on asset setup for lockers. These will be placed throughout the verse and allow players and NPCs to change their apparel to something more appropriate to their current priorities. This is something else that seems like a small thing, but there are moments while playing Star Citizen where if it were easier, more convenient to do, if I know I'm going to be spending a lot of time walking around a station or a landing zone, yeah, change into some regular clothes, get out of the big bulky space armor and, you know, put on a shirt and some regular shoes and some pants and maybe a hat or a jacket, whatever. And I'm not a huge role player. I have interest in role playing. I've done a little bit of GTA RP. I've done a little bit of Red Dead RP. I don't think I would ever fully commit to being a role player in Star Citizen either, but I would like to do a bit more of that. And I think things like making it easier to access what your player is wearing will help with that. And it'll also help just immersion on multiple levels, even if you're not trying to outright go and role play. It starts to feel a little gamey when, say, you're going to IAE, right? And you're going to check out all the ships on display. And when 90% of the other players are there and they're still wearing their combat armor while they're checking out, you know, the Santaki Eye or whatever it is, it makes it feel very gamey and less immersive. I don't think you should have to change out your armor and go wear some street clothes as you walk around, but make it easier to do.
I wonder if at some point they might implement that, especially in like, I mean, maybe not places like Pyro, but like major landing zones like Lorville and New Babbage and such. Maybe you're not supposed to be walking around carrying a weapon. So you have to change into something, or at least leave your weapon on your ship or in a locker or whatever. So I don't think they've specifically said they're going to do that, but I could see them making it where, especially places like super high secure areas like Terra, they might not let you have weapons around landing zones.
Yeah, I think the way these lockers, I'll just say it. I was listening to Astropubs. I think it was Captain's Roundtable, where they were talking about these lockers kind of being like item banks from World of Warcraft. And I never played WoW a ton. I dipped into it here and there, but I was never a long-term player. But from what I understand is with these sorts of item banks, it's not total access to your whole inventory, right? You would still have a stash or a bank somewhere, but there's a certain number of items that you would be able to easily access from a kiosk or a terminal item bank, whatever we're calling them, where you can easily access a sliver of your overall inventory, right? So not every weapon, not every gun is going to be in there, not every armor piece that you have or every component you have is going to be available at all times, but maybe there's 10, 15, 20 different things that you can have quick, easy access to, like a set of armor, like a couple weapons, like a set of clothing. You know, maybe it's 20 inventory slots or whatever. I like the idea of having something to where, say, if we're doing IAE and say that the show is happening at New Babbage. But say I started my home location over at Orison. I don't want to have to fly all the way back from Microtech to Orison to go change my shirt. You know what I mean? So hopefully it's a little quality of life thing that will help again with the overall feel and look of the game. Let's see. Anything else that we want to touch on with those lockers? Nah. Yeah. Let's see. Team implemented initial version of automated cargo loading and unloading. That's cool. They're nearing completion on Gas Cloud, Planet Cloud upscaling. We talked about that a bit. There's a Planet Tech V5 in here. You want to talk Planet Tech V5?
We don't really have a lot of information about it. Just that it's something being worked on, and I think they say their goal is to create planets quicker and easier, which has been the story for all the Planet Tech V1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. They've always, said, we do this and we get to this when we got this tool, and then, planets will be faster to make and more diverse and easier for our artist or whatever. So, I'm interested to see Planet Tech V5 and, what kind of stuff we know not a lot, but we know a significant amount of information about what kind of planets we're going to see in Pyro. Yeah. But what kind of other biomes have they been working on? Are we going to see a swamp? Are we going to see a jungle? We're going to see like a tropical areas. More so, I guess Hurston kind of has some tropical areas, but I'm thinking like clear water, palm trees, stuff like that. Dense jungle. You can't even land your ship in. Messy swamps that might be hard to drive through. Maybe stuff like that is what we're looking forward to. But yeah, the planets and stuff are one of the big reasons I like Star Citizen over something like Elite, where a lot of the planets just feel barren and kind of samey and whatever. But yeah, the planet art team and anybody who works on the planets has been doing a phenomenal job so far. So I can't even imagine what they've been cooking up.
Yeah, and I think my general feel on it is okay. Yeah, so they're working on Planet Tech V5, which implies that there's been 4 versions earlier, and the hope is with each version things get better and easier to work with, et cetera, et cetera. Now that we're getting player test sessions with server mesh, with replication layer, with jump points, the stuff seems to be working. Now something could break and it'd take a long time to fix at some point, but things seem to be moving in the right direction, and it seems like that tech is finally going to come online in the PU in 2024. Seems that way. Once that happens, once server mesh, once replication layer, once jump gates, and Stanton and Pyro both are in PU and Star Citizen, and the tech is working, after the initial, oh my God, Pyro's here, we're going to spend all of our time playing here, for a lot of the player base, I think ourselves included, there's going to come a point of, all right, so when we get in the next one? It's supposed to be 100 systems in this bad boy. It's supposed to be 100. When we going to get the next one? And if this new Planet Tech is going to help those other systems come online faster, fantastic, because they're going to need all the time saving that they can get. 100 star systems is a lot. Even if, say, the bulk of them are going to have fairly empty planets or whatever, still to make that many. And not do it AI, not do it procedural generated or whatever, but do it with a level designer or planet designer, whatever. Give them tools to make it as quick, as easy and efficient as possible. It is super important for us ever getting to that point of having 100 star systems to go explore in this game. So that's what gets me excited about Planet Tech, is that, even, I don't know the core differences between Planet Tech V4 versus V5. I got no idea. But if it's something that helps those other systems come online, once the tech is finally in place for us to connect to different systems, hopefully V5 is going to be a huge step in helping them out with that, because it's a lot more than just Stanton and Pyro that's supposed to be in this game. And we've talked about some others, Nyx, Terra, but even that's only 4. You know what I mean? There's so much more to go. Hopefully this helps with that. That's really about it, I think, for the outline.
Yeah, we didn't go over much of the squadron stuff, but yeah, we can talk about some of that next week. But these reports, a lot of it is some of them kind of mirror each other. Some of the squadron stuff is the same stuff that's going on in the PU. So might dig into that a little bit next week. But yeah, this monthly report was pretty good and juicy, and man, we got a lot of stuff going on right now, and I'm just hoping PTU is soon, and maybe we see a Pyro preview next month or two. But yeah, everything's moving forward, and we'll see how these new updates shake out.
Yes, we will. And the only other thing that I'll touch on, back in early January 5th, we put out an episode. It was episode number 10 of the podcast. And the title was Star Citizen Squadron 42 releasing in 2025. And for those that will remember, there was a supposed leak that went out via, I think, Substack. And it talked about some of the inner turmoil, I guess, maybe some possible drama happening at CIG. But the big chunk of that leak was talk about Star Citizen 1.0. And that leak talked about how it looked like they were aiming for 2025 for Star Citizen 1.0. And we were asking ourselves, I remember on the show, like, what do they mean by 1.0? Do they mean beta 1.0? Because we've been in alpha for all these years. Is that beta 1.0, or is that actually Star Citizen Live 1.0, quote unquote, full release? And we still don't really know the answer to that question. But on Spectrum, February 20th, there was a post that went up talking about the future of bed logging. And they talk about bed logging, but on March 5th, CIG's Chad McKinney went on and made a post, a response to this bed logging thread. And Chad said, I've had lots of folks ping me asking to follow up on the main question here, which is fair since I rolled into the topic to clarify a tangential question. We're looking at what we have now and the vision for 1.0 for this feature and many others. The way bed logging works in the game isn't going to fit that vision, but really more fundamentally, bed logging itself doesn't entirely fit that vision. I don't want to overly speak to specifics now, but what we want ultimately is to be more ambitious and fundamentally revisit what logging in, persistence, spawning, and everything around it. In this new world, we're going to have a drastically different game that has server meshing, persistent habs and hangers, player-created bases, multiple solar systems, and more. That said, because of all of that, it won't be something you'll see change in 323. On the road to SC 1.0, this is one of the many things in the game we're looking at to make sure it's hitting the mark for what the game needs and the vision that CR has. So I bring all that up, not to talk about bed logging, but the fact that we now have somebody at CIG using that terminology, that phrasing, Star Citizen 1.0, that was just also seen in that leak that we had back late December, early January, whenever the leak actually came out.
Right.
So that does make me wonder, like, how much does that old leak is it correct? I don't know, but
Yeah.
it does seem like internally CIG is referring to a Star Citizen 1.0. Now, whether that's 1.0 in 2025, who the fuck knows, right? We don't know. But maybe adds a little credence to that leak. Maybe some of it in there's pretty accurate. We'll see.
Yeah, just a disclaimer, we're not necessarily a leaks type of channel here.
No,
but
hopefully you know that at this point.
Yeah, but we feel that article was such a big thing of topic within the community. We just had to talk about it.
Yeah. So we're all wondering, when's this thing going to be done?
Yeah.
Quote unquote done.
Yeah. Hearing them using the term 1.0 and some Spectrum posts and stuff does seem to, give a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? Truth to that article. So yeah, that's definitely interesting to see them talking about not just internally anymore.
Yeah, but now publicly on Spectrum. So, and maybe Chad went a little rogue with that. Who knows? But I don't think Chad's the only one referring a company of over 1,000 devs. I think it's more than Chad saying Star Citizen 1.0 at the various CIG studios.
Chris saw that post and immediately ran out of his office and jumped into his Ferrari and just headed over to Chad's house. And so we got to shut this down.
First, they had to bring the yacht back to port, so he's got to deboard the yacht first.
I forget that's where he lives now.
All right, everybody, we're gonna wrap this one up. Did you have anything else for this week?
I don't think so, man. That ended up being a little longer of an episode than I anticipated it was going to be. So lots to talk about, lots going on. But yeah, I think that's all I have for this week. I got to get out of here and feed these animals. I feel like I'm being circled by a pack of wolves for the past 30 minutes.
All right. Well, with that in mind, I'm gonna speed wrap through our outro. Let's get those puppies fed.
Let's do it.
And that's it for the CommLink Podcast. Don't forget that the CommLink Podcast releases a new episode weekly featuring discussions about Star Citizen and Squadron 42. The CommLink Podcast can be found on both YouTube and Spotify. In addition to the podcast, be sure to also check out Star Citizen and Squadron 42 reaction videos on our YouTube channel. You can follow CommLink on Twitter and Instagram. The username for both I've screwed this up. Username for both platforms is @CommLinkPod. We're currently running a giveaway for a Cutter Rambler with LTI. Check out our Twitter page for details. And if you enjoyed today's podcast, like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. Until next time, thank you everyone for tuning in. Stay safe, be well. Woo! Let's get some dog food up in here, huh?
That was impressive. Hope you all caught that, but we'll see you next week.
Bye. There's going to be more to talk about, I promise.